The strangers, believe me when I say, loving me is loving danger. Your heart is bound to break. I walk alone in the night, beneath the pale moon, loving's for the fools. Baby, beware of my bite. I'm alone, I'm alone, I'm a lone wolf. 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 I'm a creeping through the shadows and the corners of your mind. I go where the wind blows, run but I don't hide. I'm a lone wolf. 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 I'm a lone wolf.
Alrighty guys, welcome everybody. Sorry for the show being late. To be honest, I had a head-splitting, bashing headache. And to be honest, I a little bit undeciding on whether I was going to do the show today. Just because of the fact I wasn't feeling 100%. But, you know, hey, show must go on, so let's jump into it. As you guys have probably seen from the topics, we will be talking about the France knife attack, which has literally just happened. We're going to be talking about Eurydice Dixon. That was an Australian comedian that was actually killed and stabbed on the way home from attending a gig. And we're also going to talk about Elon Musk and his tyrant against socialism, which I find personally really kind of funny. So yeah, at the end of the day, obviously we do have a few guys from the actual chat, from the Discord in with us again. But let's just jump straight into it, and we'll do the introductions when they come back, because I had to nick off to do something. So let's talk. Alright, so first things first, let's talk about this knife attack over in France. So some of you may be fully aware, there was actually a knife attack in France. Not the usual suspect, I must admit. Well, sort of the usual suspect, but not who you'd expect. So yeah, a woman yelling Allah Akbar, which the media has actually dubbed as her saying God is great, which it's the same thing. Why didn't you say that, media? I want to know. Trying to downplay it already, are we? Slashes 2 with a blade in France. So at the end of the day, yeah, this, like I said, this is literally just happening right now. A forensic police officer examines the grounds of a supermarket where 2 people were injured when a woman shouting Allah Akbar, God is great, attacked them with a box cutter in Lessin-sur-Mer, might be mispronouncing, in southern France. So she attacked them in the supermarket with a box cutter knife. A customer was struck in the chest during the late morning assault in the area outside of the metropolitan port of Toulon, but the wound is not life-threatening. Well, that's great to know, isn't it? Prosecutor Bernard Mitch told AFP. A woman working at the checkout counter was also cut over her eye. Both casualties were taken to hospital. It appears to be an isolated case. Really? Okay, we'll get to that in a sec. With known psychological problems. Oh, it's funny how some of these terrorist attacks always have psychological problems, if not all of them. It's weird, isn't it? It's really weird, but let's keep going. It appears, several witnesses have quoted her saying it was Allah who told her to do it. They were all miscreants and that she wanted the police to kill her, the prosecutor said. He added that the country, to what is said to the start, he added, contrary to what was said at the start, she was not wearing a veil, but a black tunic over black trousers and black glasses. So that makes all the difference. Because, you know, hey, if you're going to go to heaven for murdering infidels, it really doesn't matter if you wear your religious gown. Quite religious gown or not, but anyway. France has been on high alert following the string of jihadi attacks since early 2015, often by people who have become radicalized or claim to have acted in the name of Islamic State group. The 24-year-old assailant, who did not have a police record, was overpowered by a customer and 2 supermarket employees and taken into custody. Apparently, France now needs knife control as well. Interesting in itself, but yeah. So in March, a Franco-Moroccan man shot dead 3 people, including a policeman, at a supermarket in the southern town of Tripes before being killed by police. He had also killed the passenger of the car he hijacked in nearby Kalimsum, might be mispronouncing. This is obviously the same man that last month a knife man shouted Allah Akbar, killing 1 person and wounded 4 others during a Saturday night attack in central Paris. And more than 240 people have been killed in jihadi attacks since the massacre at the Charlie Hebdo satire, might be mispronouncing, magazine in Paris in January 2015. So more than 240 people have been killed in just over 18 months from jihadi attacks. Does anybody think we might actually have a problem with that? Hang on, let me unmute you guys for a sec. And okay, you're on. Okay.
It just sounds like.
Yep. Hey
it
guys.
just sounds like someone sharing their culture to me.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So obviously.
I thought, isn't it part and parcel? Isn't it part and parcel of living in a big city?
Well, you know,
Absolutely.
there's that too. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, according to Sadiq Khan, this is part and parcel of living in a major town or a major city. Like all our cities have got to become like this now. Like there's nothing. We just have to conform, right? Resistance is futile, isn't it? Isn't that the message they're trying to go?
You're right.
But at the end of the day, look.
Don't tell me.
It's funny how all these women and because now it's women, it's not just men, it's women as well that are doing this. It's funny how they all seem to have issues with mental instability.
I don't know how far I can get into it, but maybe some religions could be a mental illness.
You're saying the fact that they might be mixing within the family could be causing some mental instability? Putting it nicely?
That too, and maybe the some religions mixed together with that. You end up with 1 + 1 = Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, obviously, flying pretty close to the sun, but at the very minute, let's face it, okay, if this was a white person that was a nationalist, say a white Australian or a white American, they wouldn't go through playing the mental instability card, right?
No, let's take it away from the sun for a second. You can get the mental instability card if, say, you're a hardcore Christian, etc. I'd say that most religions, and to believe in religion to such a fervent extent that you are going to go out and harm somebody for the sake of your religion, or you choose to interpret it by the letter of the book in some cases, then you probably have a bit of mental instability. You are extremely easy to manipulate, and you're going to be extremely impressionable. You're probably the kind of person who a mentally retarded person can end up convinced to become gay within one night.
True.
I mean, there's probably a bit of mental instability within these people, within people in that, what's that fucker's name? The people at Westboro Baptist Church.
Westboro Baptist Church, yeah.
Yeah. However, there is, some religions that are bordering on complete cultural indoctrination. I'd say that Scientology is one. Scientology does it by basically giving you a financial reason to want to believe. You end up spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars before they drop the crazy on you. And at that point, you either have to turn around and admit, well, I wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars and believed in idiocy, or you have to go whole hog. And And then if you choose to believe that, you have to commit yourself further. Otherwise, you have to face the fact that you've been a damn idiot.
That's actually how gambling works. Once you're up to $100, what's an extra 50?
Yeah. Well, it's that addiction. It's that, can I get my money back? Can I,
So in the case of cults, the case of religion, in the case of indoctrination in general, it comes down to the idea of, okay, if I raise you back in 10th century, over in the Nordic areas in Denmark, and you're going to believe in Odin the Allfather and wanting to gloriously shed blood in battle in order to get sent to Valhalla. Now, isn't that the case of religion, or is it the case of indoctrination? And even though most people may believe this, they may not act on it so violently, whereas some will. So in the case of Christianity, if you're going around and trying to act like Mr. Batman, I don't know if you will get the reference there. He's a crazy man who prophesizes and tells you that you're going to hell for anything if you're in disagreement with him. Basically, if you're going around and trying to enforce your religion to the letter of the law, to the point of you want gays to be stoned, you want witches to be burnt, or back in 15th century, after Martin Luther translated the Bible, and sorry for interrupting, but no, it's pointless to try to explain who Mr. Batman is to them. But after Martin Luther translated the Bible back in 15th century from the original Greek to German, where the common person could read it, there were several offshoots of Christianity that formed. These offshoots were just the most minor differences. For instance, the Anabaptists is one that I enjoy thoroughly, where their difference in belief was that they thought that the initial baptism was not valid because you had to be a functioning, rational person, and you had to choose the baptism yourself in order for it to count. So your first baptism meant nothing. You had to, once you were a person, a grown adult, you had to choose to be Baptist. Hence, Anabaptist is a new Baptist. I choose, under my own volition, to get baptized and give myself to Jesus Christ, and then that shows my belief, rather than I am baptized at birth, then you're sin. These people were hunted down and massacred by the church at the time just for that difference in belief.
Well, okay, so I just want to check on, and Mary has brought up a very good point in chat. So just for anybody that has jumped in the conversation, what we're talking about is how there is extremists on both sides. So while we're talking about religion, we're not saying that all Christians, for example, are mentally unsound. I would never say that, and I don't totally agree with that. We're talking about Mary. Of course not. Yeah, we're talking about the extremists. That his argument is that there's extremists on the Muslim side that are obviously Islamic State.
Not exactly. Not exactly. That's not my argument yet. My argument is more trying to make the point of that there is a clear difference between Christianity and Catholicism back then to Christianity and Catholicism now. There is rationality within the church today, where people view it themselves, they're loud tolerance, etc. They don't get so offended at challenging their beliefs. Now, this is when you might start getting flying a bit close to the sun. In the vast majority of Islam, there is not. The vast majority of Islam still essentially mirrors what would be an ancient version of Catholicism, Christianity, etc. during the Dark Ages, or a Nordic belief in Odin, or a belief in Zeus throwing thunderbolts, or the Mayans' belief in sacrificing to the sun god.
Basically, Islam hasn't reformed, and there is a minority of Muslims who want Islam to reform.
Well, majority or minority? I would say it's a very small minority.
A very small minority who want them to reform. However, you also have to be willing to say it probably not, and I have no, probably not a majority who act on the allowance of it. So supposedly, if you look at the Pew Research reports, a majority don't support the ISIS, for instance, or the actions of them, even though technically they're going just by the holy books. However, when you get to things like honor killings, you have about, in some countries, up to 60% supporting the idea of honor killings of a woman who commits adultery or who has sex out of wedlock. you get down to as low as 20% in some countries. Some of them are mentally ill, but it's a mental illness that's coming from a form of culture indoctrination. And similarly, if you were raised in a straight up cult, in a straight up death cult, a crazy new agey death cult, you would probably have many similar beliefs. If you were raised to sacrifice people, however, whether or not you'd be willing to be the one to actually make the sacrifice, to decide to kill your daughter, there's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, well,
either way.
Yeah, well, like I said, look, at the end of the day, the fact is that, yeah, you're right. The majority of major religions have reformed over the years. So, obviously there's been different time frames for different things. But things like, for example, Islamic faith and that haven't. But the thing is that you look at people like, for example, Imam of Peace, who is actively a Muslim in Australia, who is trying to reform Islam and trying to form it to go through and actually make it so that it is a peaceful religion, and he's met with nothing but hostility. So, it does make you wonder. Look, at the end of the day, does a lot of these people really...
Are you talking about Tawhidi?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about and he's a cool guy. I've listened to a few interviews with him, and he's a smart enough man, but at the same time, his view is that he's going to make baby steps now so that 400 years from now, there can be large steps in the future, because he thinks it's a regressive religion that doesn't fit in the society. Well, in most countries where Islam is the law, he would have his head cut off for blasphemy.
Yeah, well, that's it. The fact is I'll put his Twitter up on the actual screen so you guys can see it. But yeah, at the end of the day, he well, that's what he said. Like, even in Australia, where he does have that somewhat freedom. He's still in hiding. There are people that still want to kill him for what he is saying about Islam.
He has to have private security, otherwise he will be killed, essentially.
Yeah.
But so I think that Islam is definitely a drug now. Now, here's an interesting one question that I think is a bit more interesting. There is, why are there such high levels of things like acid attacks in these countries and these cultures, even after they move out of these countries, for generation-long trends, compared to a lot of other countries, Western countries, or even say, like, look at India and how acid attacks have been on the rise now for decades, right? But if you look at the demographics closer, it's the Muslim population, it's not the Hindu population, it's not the Indians, it's the Pakistanis that come there, and then the second, third generation, etc. You see, so you can't just put it down to one generational culture or the influence of it. You could say that, okay, it's because you have religious laws that say that the woman should not be able to do this, etc. But then why choose such a horrific and brutal thing of acid to destroy someone's life when your pride is attacked? Not even attacked, when your pride is damaged by someone rejecting you. Well, it's a phenomenon we don't see anywhere else.
Well, the thing is that at the moment, these acid attacks that are happening in the West, it's not even that. It's just these guys going around randomly attacking people.
Well, that too. They're randomly attacking girls. Well, not randomly attacking, but they're attacking girls who they think are essentially being harlots and trying to,
yeah, they're just attacking people who aren't wearing the veil, so to speak, because they find what they're wearing to be offensive. Well, that's my understanding of it anyway. If anybody has any more information, please let me know. But
largely. But yeah, and this is a unique thing that's only within this culture, within this religion, because it's not just a cultural thing; it's generally a religious thing. It's mainly from this area. You don't see as much of that kind of stuff happening in Indonesia, for instance, which has the world's largest Muslim population.
No, because the fact is that the blasphemy laws are already in place.
They're already in place, but you see these kind of attacks still happening over in other countries in the Middle East. Like, if I treat Indonesian acid attacks, while there will be a few of them, it won't be near as prominent. Yeah.
No, because at the end of the day, that's what I'm saying. I think it's because at the end of the day, they already have those modesty laws where women can't walk around in boob tubes or miniskirts. That society has already cut, for lack of a better word.
But what I'm saying is in the Middle East, say in Pakistan, etc., these acid attacks are very common.
Are they that?
Whereas they have blasphemy laws. Yes, it's the things of they're not they're not super common. They're more common in the West still, though.
Yeah.
And it's because you ask her to go to marry you, and she refuses. You go around and dump acid on her.
Well, see, that's different than what we're having in the West at the moment. In the West, it's more a case of them being offended by women not dressing up in a gown, so to speak, or a burqa.
There's different manifestation.
I think it's a multiple thing.
Yeah,
it's a multiple thing. I think historically, in a war, because they call it a holy war. It's a war, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's common in war to attack the women, especially after you've conquered the village or whatever. You rape the women and pillage the cows. It's pretty much how it goes. But another thing too is they don't see our women as human because of the way they act. They see them as unclean.
Yeah.
I think is maybe their term, something like that, because they don't wear the veil and stuff. Plus rejection as well. If they're willing to acid attack their own in their own country. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
If they're willing to do that to their own kind, they're going to do it to our women because they don't think that they'd have a chance. I mean, if they just go up to one of these chicks and ask them for a date, our women are going to say no or something like that, or it's going to be a dating process, and that's foreign to them.
But is that really what's happening? Because you look at places like, for example, Sweden.
No, it's not.
You get women who are literally taking in these migrants and taking in these migrant children, and Angry Foreigner's done a video on this, where these women are taking in these foreigners, these children, and then being so sexually confused by these alpha personalities that they're jumping into bed. Mind you, they're not really children, they're actually adults, they're claiming to be children, but they're jumping into bed with these migrants because of this attraction to this sort of alpha personality. I tell you what, if any incel out there wants to get laid, grow a beard and tan your skin. You probably have a really good chance. I don't know. It just seems that it's this.
Man, just stop being such a pussy.
Well, that's
it's someone's role of submission, but as far as the acid attacks, it's largely happening. If you look at the police reports, etc., they're targeting people, and you look at the statements by the people who do it, who get caught. They're targeting people because they don't dress conservatively, or it's not necessarily because they don't think they'll have a chance of them. They just think that, oh, this person is spreading essential degeneracy and against the will of Allah. What a slut! She deserves to get changed, lashes destroyed, scarred, because so that she can't, they'll give her modesty in that sense. As far as the other thing, I personally don't necessarily buy it's that they're getting so confused with the alpha personality. I think it's just essentially that, there's essentially men acting as alpha males and domineering around the place, and there is women who are jumping into bed with them, and then there is a large amount of white guilt as well as pressure. A lot of people are just kind of weak.
Well, you see a lot of apologetics too. I mean,
yes,
I know, there's a lot of that. Sweden putting up signs, you don't touch the women, that sort of thing at the pools, in the public pools. They think that it's that simple. They think it's just a cultural thing. It really isn't. It's far deeper than that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, do you think these signs are going to do anything at all?
Of course not.
No.
Nothing. No, of course not.
No, exactly. At the end of the day, the fact is, it's like, for example, and I don't really want to get onto this on this topic, but it's like gun control. People always go on about the gun debate. We need your new rules. Well, the problem with that is at the end of the day, it's like murder. Murder is still illegal, but people do it. If people want to do something, they're going to do it regardless of what laws are currently in place. But I do find...
And this could fly close to the sun, but I mean, in my opinion, I think that it comes down to racial things too, because white people do follow the rules in our countries. Like in Australia, Europe, we're pretty civilized people in general.
Yeah, you're always going to get exceptions, but the general population, the mass amount of population, there will always be cases where people have gone through and broken the rules.
But you see that a lot of those immigrants, a much larger percentage of them don't follow the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the
Yeah,
day, they
that's-
don't
that's
have any
interesting.
invested in the country. They've come over here. They've been told they're going to come over here, and they can do whatever they want. And I'd be very, very surprised if there wasn't someone like, okay, so we all know the NGOs ship these people. We all know they've been shipped. Majority of them have been shipped by NGOs.
Yeah. There was a dentist who was fired because he ended up basically filing a report saying that their dental records prove that they are not children.
Yeah, exactly.
There's NGOs, the UN's working along with them. It was a UN dentist, by the way. The UN's working along with it. It's proven that it's essentially George Soros is funding a lot of these ships.
Yeah.
They work with the refugee ships because they schedule when they'll be out there, so the refugee ships can send their rafts out there, sink them, and then the NGO ships will rescue them. That way they're not going directly to the players picking them up, bringing them back. It's definitely getting funded by wealthy people who want to bring them over here. There's flyers that are getting handed out for fuck's sake on how to get over here.
Yeah,
Not over here, so over to Europe.
And that's what I was going to say. And at the end of the day, I'll be very, very surprised if, at the end of the day, but I'll be very, very surprised if people weren't told when they're coming over to Australia and when they're trying to get into countries like Australia and whatnot, dude, you can go over and you can rape their women and they'll let you get away with it. You just claim you got a mental illness. And at the end, if you want to stop these sort of attacks, I know. If you want to stop these sort of attacks, then maybe stopping that sort of culture at the start, before people get here.
It was actually recently shown that like Lauren Southern did watch a bit of a live stream or something, and she and a bunch of these people went out to like this mountain type area.
Yep.
And they were blocking entry. Yeah. And what was interesting is that they were quite successful at doing it. It was just a bunch of civilians when the cops could do it so easily. It's just that the government chooses not to.
I was going to say, it's funny how a bunch of civilians can... Yeah, the migration in that area dropped by about 89% after that. It's funny how a bunch of civilians this sort of stuff from happening, but the government is just, it's very powerless to do that, isn't it? It's just like, wow, that's neat. Sorry.
It's not really. Look at the 2 images I posted there in the Chute channel.
Yep.
It's not they're powerless, of course, as we all know, and that's what you're getting at. But it's it's part of the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So if anybody's playing along at home, at the end of the day, the first link is Soros-funded WTEU handbook. I actually might put a link on that.
Yeah, it said Soros-funded W2EU handbook distributed in Turkey to encourage migrants to head for #EU.
Yep.
Yeah, you might better link that story. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And the second one is an international migration initiative by the Open
Just read the
Society
part that's highlighted down there.
And the part that's highlighted...
Open Society's foundation is Soros, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, that is what Soros got $28 billion to.
Strategic corridor approach, facilitating coordinated actions in countries of origins, transits, and looks like deconstruction or something.
Transit and destination.
Yeah. Right.
So no, it works across borders. So to achieve these goals, the International Migration Initiative aims to fill the 3 gaps in the field. It works across borders through a strategic corridor approach, facilitating coordinated action in countries of origin, transit, and destination. It's essentially them admitting that they are working with the human traffickers over in those countries of origin to get the people over to Europe, over to Italy, and over to Spain, etc. This is their admission that they are working with these people. And you can find this on the Open Society Foundation site for the Programs of International Migration Initiative. This is the site that George Soros gave $28 billion to. To the organization. It's the one that funds Black Lives Matters, BAM, etc. Bans means necessary, BAM. It funds essentially every lefty group under the sun. The only places where they really
Australia
don't
got
fund
some.
them anymore. Oh yeah, of course.
Get Up, I believe, got some of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
This
only
is the
places
same
that don't get them.
organisation. This is the same organisation that goes through and pushes for open borders, mind you.
George Soros has admitted himself. The borders are the problem. Not the. I think I've showed you most of these images before. Soros says national borders are the obstacle, as opposed to you can just Google that article to find it.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, I understand what he is saying. I'll put a link to that too. I understand what he is saying. His idea is that he can go through and combat racism by removing borders, by removing the nationalists from their country. The problem with that...
Nationalist identity.
Yes, the national identity. So, for example, Australia being Australian, American being American, yada, yada, yada. So, at the end of the day, the problem with that, though, is if you start removing that, you're sort of removing the culture from your country. But also, the thing is that...
What you're trying to say is civic nationalism is a farce.
Yeah, it really is. To be honest, civic nationalism doesn't work. It's never worked.
They're not even trying to do civic nationalism. They're not even trying to do civic nationalism. They're trying to essentially make it so it's an amalgamation of just one people around the world, because the idea is that removal of borders, removal of barriers will lead to a world without war, because you won't have two distinct countries going to war with each other anymore. It would just be one distinct country all around the world, so you won't be able to have any sort of nuclear war, nuclear annihilation, etc. But he's a man who's near the end of his death and is never going to see the fallout for any of this, or never see the hard times. We will all one day become a world of greys, according to these people. We'll all become a tan-skinned amalgamation of everybody. There'll be no borders. There'll be one world. There'll be peace that will reign. But we'll die out in the process.
Yeah, I don't think it'll ever come apart. So I think the world has woken up to the dangers of bringing in a third world country into a first world. There are logistic nightmares that occur when you start doing this sort of stuff. You have a person that has grown up in a culture where, for example, they're raping and killing someone. I don't want to say it's a part of everyday life, but let's just say that some countries put a more emphasis on it than others. Like for example, if you go to the Congo uses rape as a weapon of mass, of terror and against tribes. If you import those into a country, then at the end of the day, they're not going to have the same values that we have. And this is where the civic nationalism fails, because at the end of the day, these people don't have the same values that we have, and you're expecting them to change in a matter of what? How long do you give them? Do you give them days, weeks, months, years? How long before you're supposed to deprogram someone from that sort of culture?
An hour is too long to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay. But you're not looking at it from their perspective. Their perspective isn't of, okay, we have to deprogram them. Their perspective is anything's better than a World War III, a nuclear war in that sense. And if we bring all these people in and you end up having to kowtow to Sharia law and Islamic values and culture, then at least it's better than a war between two halves of the world.
But the problem with that theory,
wiped out.
Well, the problem with that theory is at the end is that the people of that country will have a civil war. You're not going to have. Yeah, sure, you won't have a world war. You're going to have a civil war while a country tears itself apart.
Even if they don't get wiped out, let's say we decide to all just bow down and do the soft surrender, it's still going to be an annihilation of half the world, or it's half the culture of the world over generations, until there is just nothing left but just one people. And there is one group here that is saying, no, our culture only. And there is another group here that is being an apologist with essentially Western guilt.
Yeah.
To illustrate that, I was going to show you this article here. I think I might have mentioned this to you before in passing. But would you like to have a quick read of that headline? for your audience, and you can maybe link that in there as well. This happened a few years ago.
I don't know if I can actually post that headline, can I?
Oh, I'm sure you can. You just won't get monetized if you're
well,
monetized.
I'm not monetized anyway, but
Yeah.
for some reason,
Do you want me
Google
to
does
read
not
it?
want to monetize this channel. I don't know why. Swedish.
Okay. Wait. Wait. I'll read it in a way that should be okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone knows about the Swedes. Okay, so there's the opposite sex of men who she didn't report a guy who came in from another country that was molesting her daughter.
Hmm.
Yeah. The Swedish
Her
mother was dating
12-year-old
an
daughter,
Asian
mind
man, an Asian refugee man,
Hmm.
and refused to report him after when he caught him abusing a 12-year-old daughter, because
supposed
if
to
you
call
slow
them
it down, Asian. I hate the media calls them Asian men. I'll call them Asian men too.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm pretty sure if you went to China or somewhere and asked them what their opinion on that would be, that they'd probably stab you with a samurai sword. But anyway.
There is a backlash. There is already a backlash from the Asian community
Oh
in
yeah,
Europe.
I already know. I know what their opinion is already. Now, here's the thing though. If you read the article, and this, funny enough, wasn't the original article I was looking for. The original article I was looking for happened a year ago. It was because she was afraid he would be deported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words,
my stance
well,
is that
just
if
before
somebody,
just before
and I
you jump
don't
into
care
that.
what race they are. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, it's fine. So just before we jump into that, so just to reiterate for the people playing along at home, a person would not report a migrant molesting her 12-year-old daughter because she was afraid he would get deported. Yeah. Moving along. What were you going to say, bro?
Sorry. Sometimes you cut out while you're streaming. I understand that it can happen too. Anyway, I was just going to say that my stance is I don't care even if they're the most Australian person. If they do that to my daughter, they're not living. They're not going to live to tell the story.
Yeah. See, I agree. Don't deport him. Just put a bullet in him.
Well, at the end of the day,
I was trying not to go there.
I don't know. I don't know what Sweden's.
I'm pretty sure everyone can agree to build bullets for pedophiles.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure what Sweden's views are on capital punishment and stuff like that. I imagine they are very left-leaning. We do have people from Sweden who obviously watch the show, so if they're in chat, feel free to comment. But I was going to say, but at the end of the day, I would imagine that they would be very... Oh, you don't want to kill them because at the end of the day, that's capital punishment and that's wrong. But I imagine it'd be a case of, they need rehabilitation.
Yes, the Nordics have a view of rehabilitation, and she doesn't want. Doesn't want this guy to go back to a war zone where he'll just get worse. She wants to give him a chance.
Yeah. Well, look, at the end of the day, do you think we're going to see more women? Getting back to the original story, do you think we're going to see more women doing these attacks, or do you think this is just going to be an isolated thing?
It's an interesting question.
As long as they can use them as a weapon, then yes. They started using. They originally used men just with trying to do context of that. They realized this wouldn't work. They started laying IEDs. The soldiers started getting used to finding IEDs, sweeping for them beforehand, etc. So they started using suicide bombers. They wouldn't let men approach the thing. They said they used women. I'm talking about what happened in Iraq, Afghanistan here.
Yeah, they went to children eventually.
Exactly, this is my point. So they went to men trying to do it. They wouldn't let men approach. They went to women trying to do it. Okay, they started, and then they went to children, and they're having less and less success with it because it's fucking horrible for the soldier and for the child that sends it. But fuck the parents whose child has shot with a bomb. They are just getting now shot if they approach the checkpoints if they get too close to the checkpoints, which you can understand when it's you and all of your best friends. They're at a checkpoint. There's a person walking towards you saying, "Oh, I just want to sell you some bracelets.
Yeah,
I'm walking towards this tank and armed guard post." And the thing is, the really horrible thing is they'll probe the post beforehand. They'll send a child forward with nothing to get close and to see if they are going to, if the soldiers are going to try to let the person in.
Yeah.
Because if they don't let the child get close and they kill the child, and it turns out the child has no suicide vest and was unarmed completely, what that does is it helps the death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's one more wound in the morale of the Allied forces. It's one more blow to the public support for being over there in the first place. And it's a group of soldiers who are never going to forget that moment and never going to stop hating themselves.
Yeah, we've all seen the video where that child...
just as effective as having a suicide bomber.
Yeah, well, we've seen that video where that child has been grabbed or was forced or told to run up towards the UN or the liberation forces, and as he approached I think he actually says that he has been wired or he's got devices on him, and they were able to detonate it before he pulled the trigger. But what happened was basically it was a cell phone hooked up to an explosive, and the jihadis would actually wrap these kids up in these bombs, and then they'd wrap up 6, 10, 24, whatever they've got, and they'd say run over to the UN forces, and then when they were all embedded with the UN or the liberation force, they would just ring the mobile phones and blow them up.
Yep. And they don't do this all the time. A lot of times they'll just send the child unarmed there. Like, as we've read, with no bombs. Because this still makes it apparent enough to have to defend themselves.
Yeah, this kid had no guns or anything on him. He had a...
Nonpartisan, your internet is really taking a hitting.
Yeah, I think it's because of the fact I'm streaming and yeah. But actually, guys, just fill in for 5 seconds and let me try and fix something. So just talk amongst yourselves.
Sure.
No worries. So, I guess I'll go on to just quickly commenting on the idea of, well, this is what I think is going to end up happening within the public sphere. It's gone from men with guns and bombs to trucks of peace, and now women coming out and doing this. Eventually, if this all gets kind of being cracked down upon, you will have a child one day doing it.
Well,
or getting used in an
it
attack.
might actually happen in Australia, and maybe not that far in the future. Because I don't know if you covered this story, but you, Nonpartisan, if you're back, there was that story that Australia is trying to bring back the children, the orphan children of fighters that have gone over to Iraq and stuff to fight for ISIS. And so, these children who have, grown up doing horrible things for ISIS, they want to bring them here. I mean, as if these children are going to integrate really well into high school.
Yeah, well...
Come on.
Yeah, I think it was up to 200, wasn't it?
Children. Yeah, we're going to have, these kids running around bloody chopping people's heads off and stuff. That's gosh. So it might actually happen in Australia, to be honest.
Yeah, well, they are bringing the children back.
So they are actually. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So basically, what the story is for people playing at home. It was these children that would go through, and they went over to ISIS to fight for them, and now that ISIS has been defeated, they want to quote come back home. The Australian government is opening them with open arms and is saying that we should let these children back into Australia because they are Australian citizens. Well, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, but if you go and fight for the opposition,
kid or not,
you're no longer an Australian citizen. That is treason. You should be tried for treason. Yeah, I don't care if you...
They should be tried as adults.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they are adults, I think, aren't they?
Not all of them. Some of them are actually kids. But
okay.
They should be tried as adults.
The part of this whole problem is because they have went over there. If they're still citizens of that country, then just get rid of their citizenship, make them stay.
Yeah.
Now the problem is when they're not citizens of that country and they're Australian citizens. The reason why we if we want to follow international law, we have to let them come back because it's a crime against humanity to make someone stateless, right?
Well, hang on. So hang on. So can't we put something in our constitution where if you go and fight for another country, that it is...
if you go and fight for an enemy combatants, I'd say that's how you word it.
Yeah, so an enemy combatants, then that is treason. Isn't that treason itself?
It's treason.
You don't even want it to be enemy combatants necessarily, because then you could argue that small terrorist groups aren't enemy combatants. So yeah, ISIS, sure. What if it's a small offshoot group, but over in Indonesia, for instance?
Oh, okay, enemy combatants and terrorist organizations.
Yes, and just obviously to, in case YouTube is listening, I'm not saying it's just, for example, certain particular countries. I'm saying that, for example, if we were at war with Great Britain, for example, and someone ran over to fight for the British against Australia, then they should be tried for treason. I don't care who it is. If we are actively against some militia, country, army, whatever, then at the end of the day, that is treason. You are fighting against your own country's better interest.
I think where the law gets sticky is this idea, like especially with America, where they actually have basically ISIS inside their soil. So like, terrorist organizations plotting terrorist things on American soil. I mean, 24 is a classic example of this sort of thing. The TV show. Yeah. And I mean, it's a sticky situation because you would actually have American citizens, and so you have to try them, like as citizens of your own country. I think it's confusing in some ways on the law, and so what do you do with their family members? What do you do with their children? It's difficult. It's a very difficult situation in that regard, and I can sympathize with leaders who try to figure that out.
Well, look,
still in Australia though.
Sorry.
I was saying, it's still we have laws that say if you could commit a crime overseas, you are still guilty within this country. You are still a criminal.
Look, at the end
you don't get out that easily, and you get tried here.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. If the leftists want to let him in the country, sure, we'll let him in the country. We'll arrest him at the airport, take him to court that day, and we'll do a due process, which I'm not saying no due process. Put him through a due process, arrest him, charge him with treason, and lock him up for 30 years.
This will happen.
And I would say that it has to be a jury. I don't want to trust some lefty cuck.
No kangaroo courts
judge.
Or anything like that. Honest, decent politician.
Can I say? This will certainly happen. They'll bring him back and then they'll put him through trial. Problem is going to be children. Happen. It will happen. Like, as far as they'll put them through a trial, as far as they've still broken Australian law.
I disagree. I disagree. Just on that, I disagree. I reckon you'll find that they'll come into the country and nothing will happen to them. But anyway, keep going.
I don't think they'll necessarily be tried and convicted. I think they'll be tried though.
I feel sorry.
If there's a sign of judgment for some of them.
I feel sorry for the parents of kids who are going to be in that school where their kids are going to a school with a terroristic child.
I just want a list of those schools.
So I can put them on my blacklist, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, this is the thing. At the end of the day, if a child, and especially a child that has gone to a war zone and has come back home, and this is the value or the belief that most Australians have, is how emotionally balanced is this child going to be when it comes to going through a schooling education system?
Well, let's just say, like, if any of the kids bully this kid, right? Like, let's say that it's not even violence, but, like, it could be violence. Like, a kid could be stabbed or killed by one of these children if they get bullied, because violence to them is second nature. But the other thing is that even if they don't commit any violence, but the stories they would tell to your kids that would just screw them up in the head and get nightmares and stuff. Like, this is just... people aren't thinking about this.
there was already an attack of this. I'm trying to think of who it was, and I'm trying to think. There was a child over in the US, right, and he was going to school, and he was friends with the American children and everything like that. The thing was that one of the childs claimed that he made a remark about Islam or Allah or something like that, and this child, this Muslim child, stabbed and killed. I think it was he stabbed the child. He tried to kill the mother. He went through and he was attacking about 3 or 4 people out of this family. I'm trying to think of what the name of it was and where it was. I covered it actually. Yeah, someone wants to go back through my. Sorry, I'll put a link to it if I can find. Hang on, I'll put a link to it in the description. I can find it. But yeah, it was basically this Muslim kid that was offended because someone attacked Allah, and it ended up being that this kid and the family's kid were watching ISIS videos and all that the night before. It was interesting to listen to or to cover because of the fact of what can happen, but you know that this is a kid that is Americanized. You know, what's a kid going to a third world country and coming back? How's he going to handle this
5 committees?
The same sort of situation, you know? But anyway, yeah. What were you saying?
Hello.
No, he's muted. All right. So, Cook, what's your fear?
So,
I mean,
no, I don't think he's going to handle it very well.
No.
No, he's going to. This is the thing. It's down to the cultural differences. And so, you know, when like I was bullied a lot in school, and I didn't have fantasies of picking up an AR-15. I mean, or neither did I have fantasies of knife attacks and acid attacks. It's down to this individual children's upbringings and their Islamic teachings, I think. But that's what concerns me about these ISIS fighter children, because they're going to come back and they're going to have a completely different mindset as to how to handle things in school.
I'd worry more about their socialization in that sense, right? So, like, I can think of myself times when I've been pissed off enough in school and think, God damn, I could just take this knife because I was doing a carving thing in one of our classes and just jam that guy, got it with something that way, right? Of course, I'd never do something like that and never did. But that's because I was socialized, behaved, I was getting really annoyed at the time.
Yeah.
There are other kids who will take this a bit too far, etc. You know, you'll get in a fight over nothing. Kids are kids in that sense. Things will happen. However,
yeah, I mean,
these are kids who are being brought as warriors and brought to kill.
Sorry, is that?
My personal story on this actually is I went to a high school. It doesn't matter. It's a long way away now, very long way away.
Yeah,
I actually went to Punchbowl High School.
Okay. Yeah.
In Punchbowl High School, if you know anything about Punchbowl Cooked, you know that's a very Islamic place. Now, when I went there, I had a Chinese friend, and basically what happened there is, I'm not sure what he did exactly, but like I used to hide up in the top floor of one of the buildings during lunchtime because I just wanted to get away from the bullying, especially being an Aussie in like a 99% Islamic school. And what they did to my friend, they actually killed him in a drive-by shooting.
Oh shit!
Jesus.
Yeah, and so I remember this vividly. The fact that you know, I never saw him again, and it was quite a haunting thing. Only a couple of weeks later, my entire family, we all moved very far away. Yeah. We went out. Basically, we did white flight. We moved a good 300-400 k's away. Since then, even further. That's why it doesn't matter to me to say what high school it was. Now, this Punchbowl High School has been embroiled in further problems to this day. It is, I believe, that particular high school that is now having problems with some of the teachers, and the teachers mentioning that the kids, they treat the teachers like the because they're women who don't wear the veil. They actually do some bad things. And also the principal of that school was recently in some kind of drama because I believe he is a Muslim himself. Maybe you can bring up the story and mention it. The specifics are vague to me right now, but it has something to do with the fact that he's been dismissed. Yeah. This particular high school is terrible. It's a terrible example of what happens because of ghettoization.
So the top article is Punchbowl public teacher blows the whistle on Islamic.
Yes.
Okay, that's hidden behind a paywall. Of course it is.
I'm not surprised. Yeah. You could probably even find the article on the Asian kid who got killed in the drive-by shooting. To be honest, you'd probably even find that. But it was back in 98 or 96. It's either 96, 97, or 98 when it happened.
So
can I just say one thing quickly? It's driving me crazy that everything is under a bloody paywall that is the slightest bit controversial or interesting to actually talk about or write about.
yeah,
It's because they want to claim that they are reporting on it, but then they put it behind the paywall so that very few people ever see it. It's to keep the statistics good. We're non-partisan media.
I understand.
But the real
But,
non-partisan media is right here, right now, not behind a paywall.
Yeah, guys, I'll say now, I'll never paywall. I will never paywall any of my stuff. For example, if Rebel Media came up and said to me, Jesus, noise in the background. If Rebel Media came up and said to me, would you work for me but put your stuff behind the paywall, I would say no. Just because of the fact that I think it screws over your subscribers, and B, it's not going to help red pill or inform people. And that's the general idea of a media company. But
well, a lot of people will be very angry at me for taking a shot at Red Ice Radio, but they do the paywall thing quite a bit. Yes,
they do. And that's what I say. Look, at the end of the day, and it's not just the left or the right that do it. Both sides do it just as much as each other. And that's what I say. I have no plans on ever doing that. And if I ever do, you guys have permission to slap me as hard as you want.
Do I?
But sorry, what was that?
I said, do I?
I probably shouldn't say that. But the article I found was students at Punchbowl Boys High School threatened to behead teachers and bully classmates into reading the Quran. Does that sound something like what you were talking about?
Sounds like a good old time.
Yeah, sounds like a lovely place to send you to school.
I literally was a student. I was literally a student at that high school.
Wow.
For year 6 and 7.
Yeah.
I can tell you it is hell. It was hell. Absolute hell. And one of my friends being killed did not help the situation. I went through so much head screwage that I can also mention that I went through... Oh my God.
Little mascot in the background.
Sorry,
you're
guys.
not giving someone enough attention.
That's right.
I know. No, but I mean, like, I actually had a mental condition where I remember I was torturing a cat, like my family kitten. Like, that's how bad my brain got. I didn't do anything horrible. It was just, just flicking its nose with a long rubber thing. So I didn't do anything horrible, but
no.
I'm just saying, like, these are the mental screw-ups that were caused to me.
Yeah.
Because of what was happening to me in the school. Well, according to this... I'm healthy now.
Yeah. I was going to say, obviously you got a child in the background and everything like that. But I was going to say, year 5 students at school... Sorry? Just read this out. Year 5 student at a school embroiled in controversy reportedly were showing signs of radicalization and pretending to carry out beheadings in classes. frightened teachers at Punchbowl Public School made formal complaints about their concerns of violence in the classroom to the Daily Telegraph reports. Documents show pupils allegedly threatened to behead teachers, bullied peers into reading the Quran, and demonstrate the Syrian flag be displayed in the and demanded the Syrian flag be displayed in the classroom. At least 3 teachers are said to leave due to stress, and counselling on being paid compensation as a result of the bullying from the radicalisation students.
Well, dude, kids will be kids, right?
Yeah, it's just part and parcel of living in a big city, mate. At the end of the day, there's no real major problem with this, is there? Like, this is not something that we should be worried about. But don't worry, we have...
It's just into big cities. It doesn't happen in small country towns or small cities or anything like that. It's nothing to do with density of population or demographics. Nothing to do with religion or Anyway,
But
all this stuff is fucking horrible, and the reality is it's not going to stop until you can somehow remove the symptom from this community, or in this case, you have to wait until these communities can get this shit out of their own community. Otherwise, get used to it.
Well, see, this is the thing. Like, at the end of the day, it does make you wonder, too, is what these kids have been taught at home. If this is the kids' views, they've obviously been exposed to it somewhere.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, it'll be from home life. So, it's great that we have, there's secret force police that goes around investigating the, quote, right wing that has any dangerous ideology or religious beliefs, but what about the dangerous ideologies or religious beliefs that are on the left? That they're not caring about. Why are you only focusing on one side of the politics and not the other side, which is arguably probably more dangerous than anything that the right does?
Oh, absolutely. It's
I mean, it's kind of interesting, actually. It is the home life. Because these kids are Australian citizens.
Yeah.
They were born and raised in this country, but they have these beliefs. They have these ideas. This is what they do. I mean, when are people going to understand it in our government that it doesn't go away because they were raised here? They're not Australian.
It's basically a regression to the cultural mean in a sense. It's these people who come over here. It's reality. Your parents are it's the same way as if I take a generational family that from the sticks in Australia who've always dealt drugs, handled the problems with their fists, beaten the child, etc. Blah, 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 and I take them to the middle of the wealthiest neighborhood in Australia. It's not going to turn around the behavior like that. What's going to happen is essentially they're going to get caught by the police because the police actually police these wealthy neighborhoods, and they're going to get thrown in jail.
Exactly.
But anyway, let's jump into this. Let's jump into something else because we've been covering this for over an hour.
Sure.
So. Yeah.
Oh my God! Really?
It's been an interesting conversation.
About an hour and a half, actually. I think we've been going on this one topic. Just over an hour, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So, have you guys heard about the comedian Eurydice Dixon, who was 22, had sent a heartbreaking final message before she was found murdered in the park?
You don't want my comments.
Yeah. Okay. So, look, let's try and keep it YouTube friendly if we can. Obviously, the girl she sent a text message, from my understanding, she sent a text message to her boyfriend saying, "I'm home soon, I'll be safe, how about you?" Shortly after sending that text message, she was assaulted in a park, she was raped, she was murdered. They have caught the guy who did this.
Handed himself in.
Yeah, so the alleged killer of Mrs. Dixon, whose body was found in the Melbourne Park on Wednesday, is escorted to police in the Melbourne Magistrates Court. They've blurred out his face. I don't know what to say about this that could be YouTube friendly, to be honest.
Okay. Can you describe the perpetrator?
He's an overweight incel.
He's a rather larger than life character who, judging from this picture, seems to have a beard and a Middle Eastern appearance.
No, really, it's not. I was worrying about that as well.
Well, look at the picture I posted.
Oh no, I know. Let me just find you the uncensored CCTV footage, if you like.
Sure.
Okay.
I had it just a moment ago. Let me just reopen the article originally because I need to see his name again. Now, what I find more interesting about this is the guy's age, appearance. So his name was James Todd. Jymes Todd. Yes. Yeah. And if you just go on Google Images, I mean, you can see it in there. His parents say no inkling. His dad also looks like an overweight. And obviously he's having a bad freaking day there. But here is the uncensored footage that came out. Then the guy handed himself in. He's a neckbeard.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that sort of makes it a little.
Yeah.
Makes it a little easier because the face was making it blur. It was hard to see.
Although he doesn't look Middle Eastern in that photo to me.
No, but in the one I posted, he did.
Yeah, which is my original reaction. That's why I ended up looking up. This is his father.
Okay.
Look, who knows what his mother looks like? That's the other thing as well. But I mean, from that photo I just posted, then he doesn't look like he's Middle Eastern. I originally thought it was as well from that original photo. That I thought actually looked like he's Greek or something. But I mean, I straight away noticed the father's gold watch and things like that. It wouldn't be 2 decks of Long Beach ciggies.
Yeah.
Tucky Bourbon Cola.
So, what do you guys think? This is just a case of an incel, or?
Probably. I mean, he's a neckbeard.
Heavily overweight, neckbeard. People say there was no. There was no inkling he could be connected with it. I mean,
bad things happen.
He was in an online education program of mathletics. He also posted about playing Farmville.
Oh,
and the dive game Farkle.
Farmville, hey, that game.
And he had been apparently diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and was socially regressive. He was an incel, essentially. This is a part of the incel uprising in that sense.
Okay, this whole incel uprising,
the woman
very
got beaten over the back of her head. Yeah. I use that term really. Listen, the thing is, the thing that I'm wondering, and I'm surprised that the media isn't taking this spin yet. That's why I don't really want to say, is this the case of an online incel / poll type user seeing a woman who he thought looked like a modern day feminist that are attacking his games and stuff like that, who got laid and went and bit her over the back of the head and raped her? Look at this second image. Tell me that isn't Anita Sarkeesian fucking come on.
No, dude, at the end of the day, she's a comedian, and no,
he probably has no idea who she is. Even if she's a comedian, I wonder if her comedy is...
Look, I think you're going way off on a tangent here.
She's described as a feminist comic.
You're going way off on a tangent, man.
I know, don't attack your own mate, but like...
It's not. Look, at the end of the day, if a guy on the right does something wrong, I'll fucking attack him for it. But this whole don't punch right thing, I think, is a load of crap, especially if the guy's done something wrong.
Yeah, me too.
But at the end of the day, I think this is just a case of a guy who couldn't get a little bit of a vagina action, I want to say, is a nice way of putting it. And
I'm not saying it's a poll necessarily. What I'm saying is more of, was he incel, Saganite sort of type person, one of the people who was one of the patrons who was putting the whole thing but never done the thing, angry at women, essentially misogynist because he never got laid in his life and never had a chance to. Not because he has an issue with modern morals and degeneracy, but it's more of, I'm surprised this angle hasn't been taken yet as a way to attack, I'd be interested to see how much of his life was online, how socially aggressive he was in that sense, and if you could attach any of his online profiles to his name, to see if he posts about like what communities he's involved in. And
I'm only going to throw you one little bone. There is, I do have some slight concern on this whole strange subculture that comes out of R9K and incels in general. But I mean, there's going to be a few isolated cases of this sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's
important
people,
enough to spend much time on.
No, I don't think it's a. Honestly, I think this is more of a case of one crazy incel has been just lost up in the shit and decided, oh fuck it, I'm gonna go out and rape and kill a bitch because she deserves it, and they're dirty feminists and they blah blah blah. That's if you knew about it. Or either that, or he was just horny, lonely nerd who was so frustrated, had a bad day, been bullied, saw the girl, tried to talk to her, got pissed off, smacked her at the back of the head, raped her in a park, and killed her afterwards in his shame.
You don't have to look much further than someone like Ben Isaacs. I mean, that is a typical...
That's the kind of person I'm talking about. Like, yeah, and that's what I think's happened here. It's either a case of someone like Ben Isaacs who's just so caught up in hating the world.
Well,
or
Ben Isaacs is a 30-something, neckbeard, fat, or the same thing. You're basically looking at a younger version of Ben Isaacs in a photo.
Yeah, honestly, Ben Isaacs is I wouldn't be surprised if he's 22 and it's just got some slight physical retardation.
He's 19.
He has, and that makes him look older.
He's 19.
No, Ben Isaacs we're talking about, not this guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, this guy's...
So this kid, this 19-year-old is just a younger version of Ben Isaacs who just went even further in a short time.
Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, obviously, look, we don't know what happened. Look, I'm not defending the guy or anything like that. I'm just simply saying we don't know what happened before that. We don't know what this...
Yeah.
We don't know what the history is between these two.
We don't know. We're just speculating.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the media obviously isn't going to be talking about that. The media is more focused on the fact that this poor defenseless woman was walking home and was attacked by what looks like a fat neckbeard. But, obviously there are a lot of questions regarding this as to why she would walk 7 miles. I think it was 7 miles or 7 Ks. Why is she walking home at this sort of time of the night on her own? Why not get an Uber? Why are you doing this? And this is where
because she's a strong, independent woman.
How did that work out for
her? I agree, but at the same time, like Australia wasn't like this at one point in fucking time. Like, I can't really say that. No, the world's always been like this. Everywhere
there's always been attacks. There's always been people.
And it's always been like this.
Yeah,
you can get away with it in some areas, in some small. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'll tell you now, if I was a 22-year-old woman, I don't care how strong and independent I think I would be, I would not be walking home 7 miles or 7 kilometers or whatever it is at 3 o'clock in the morning.
You don't.
On my own.
You've got the wrong idea, dude. Men are supposed to not rape. That's
true.
The thing.
Yes, and that's what I say. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, yes, that is true, and I fully agree that the fact is that yes.
For God's sake, that was a joke.
Oh, okay. Oh. But I do agree with that fact.
Men should never rape people.
Yeah.
And criminals should not kill people. Lions, you hope, would not eat people. But at the same time, you don't go walking through the ghetto in a bikini. It's the same reason why when you shouldn't go walking around in the middle of the night all alone. Or when you're drunk, you shouldn't get blackout drunk at a party without friends who can look out for you, protect you. You have to have the sense of the personal responsibility. This shit shouldn't happen to you. Never should happen to you.
Yeah.
What we need is Bully Hunter _ We need Bully Hunter _ 77.
No, because that didn't work.
No one's gonna get that reference.
No, but
no, they should.
I don't even think I
should know that.
I don't think I actually covered Bully Hunters even when it drastically crashed and burned into a dumpster fire.
There'll be plenty of people in your audience who would know Bully Hunters. Come on, that was big news.
True, but what I was going to say was. But hang on. So what I was going to say was, look, at the end of the day, getting back to my point. Yeah, the feminists out there that are saying that women shouldn't be raped and they shouldn't be murdered, I fully agree with. This girl in an ideal world, should be able to walk home on her own.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yes, without being raped or murdered. Fully agree with. But at the end of the day, and my point is this, is at the end of the day, that said, even if I was a 22-year-old female, I would not be walking home 7 kilometres at 3 o'clock in the morning on my own. Especially after getting paid...
Through a park.
Through a park.
Through a park.
Yeah, if you're walking through a park at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're looking for 2 or 3 things. And I'll tell you, one of them is probably drugs, and the other is probably a really fun time. I was going to say, bad idea. And this is where we're getting into the part 2 of the story, because the police department have come out and said that, that women have to take some responsibility for their actions. You don't walk home at 3 o'clock in the morning in a dark park.
Well, that guy got fired.
He probably got fired for saying that.
We don't know yet, because it's just literally happening. But I was going to say,
well, that guy's about to get fired.
That guy's probably about to get fired.
Yeah, he's about to get fired.
I'll see if I can find the actual article on it while I'm talking to you guys, actually.
It'll probably be an administrative leave.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was...
Oh, yeah, of course, but,
But the thing is that the feminists are now going on about the slut walks and, women should be able to wear whatever they want. And yeah, it's blowing up into a feminist thing now. And it's like, yeah.
Here's the thing. I can't take a woman wearing nipple tassels holding up a sign. Seriously. I'm sorry.
No, but you can film it for later.
True.
You're a sick man.
Oh, God. Did I just agree to that? I thought you meant for a video later, but apparently... I meant for a compilation video, just for the record. Anybody out there that wants to take that out of context, Jared Holt.
Did you? You mean a copulation video?
Sorry?
A copulation video.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah,
you guys know my pronunciation, I think, is pretty whacked at the best of times. But anyway. But yes.
Yeah.
So apparently, like I say...
I behaved myself very well.
Yeah. I hope we all do. But what I was going to say was, getting back to the story, that the police department have reportedly came out and said about the, that women should contain themselves. That should be, don't go putting yourself into a dangerous situation, from what I've heard. I'm trying to find a story on it. I don't even know if it's actually broken on the news yet, because it's literally just happened. But yeah, it's just... The feminists are using it for the whole virtual signal, and women should wear what they want, which is ironic because feminists have just gone through and literally tried to get, they got bikinis banned from the Miss America contest, and dark girls and the motorsport girls now aren't allowed to do their thing. So it seems
the
Greek girls.
Yeah, the good girls. That's such a pity.
Yeah.
Just if they come for my UFC girls, then I'm gonna get mad.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, it's a case of women should be able to do what they want when it suits the feminist movement. Yeah. But anyway.
Well, you're sounding like a misogynist. Aren't you supposed to be a feminist ally in Nonpartisan Media?
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you're expecting me to be a feminist ally, you got nothing coming for you. But anyway, but I don't know. Yeah, look.
I've got to go.
Sorry.
Never mind. Okay.
But yeah, look. At the end of the day, I was going to say, look. Yeah, I agree. Women should be able to do what they want and everything. In an ideal world, I should be able to leave my keys in my car and not have to worry about it being stolen too. Fact of the matter is that...
I used to be able to do that in my town.
I agree.
Oh, I used to be able to do that in my town.
Yeah.
I won't tell you what the demographics were, but you can guess.
Yeah, well, it's... Yeah, let's not get into that, because then I'm definitely not going to get monetized. But let's just say anybody that wants to watch Lauren Southern's Farmlands story, there's an interesting part in that where it's about a town that's remarkably safe. But moving along... but look at and the last thing I wanted to touch on was Elon Musk is set Twitter on fire yet again, I would say.
What's he done this time?
So he's came out. Those who proclaim themselves socialists are usually depressing, have no sense of humour, and attend an expensive college. Fate loves irony.
I love this guy more every day.
Oh God, I think he's a funny bastard, isn't he?
It's awesome.
I don't know who's been given Elon Musk the red pills.
No, he's always been red pilled. He's just getting fed up with somebody. What I'm more wondering is who the fuck's pissed him off recently to make him just mouth off and then burn so many bridges with investors. Either that, or he's just got enough capital in himself and reputation now. He's just going, yep, fuck it. I'm saying what I want from now on. I don't need to play nice with you to get your money anymore. I can get my own and just say I want to do something, and I'll have enough people jump up to fuck me that I don't care.
So it's funny. Someone said to him in the comments, "What would you claim yourself as anything specific?" He said a socialist, and then he wrote, "Marxist was a capitalist. Even wrote a book about it. And no, I don't trust the Engels guys. He could have made up most of the second or third volumes. Nobody actually knows."
Is he referring to the eagles in like the shape of the eagle's beak?
Let me post.
You have to post that there because it could be several things.
Yeah.
Engels guy. Engels is a writer about it.
Engels.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, he's a writer who wrote some other socialist books.
I'm not quite sure. I
thought you were trying to say he was making a Nazi reference or a shape reference. And I was like, what the fuck? No way he's doing that on Twitter. No, he wants an account still.
Well, yeah.
Come on, as if Twitter would have the cojones to ban that guy.
They'd probably delete the comment though, and then he would lose a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know. He might have to donate to a charity or something if he went that far. But I was going to say,
yeah. Just donate to it.
Yeah, donate to the Socialist Fund or something like that. Help spread that wealth around.
He'd have to donate to the Clinton Foundation. He would have to donate to the Clinton Foundation or something like that. A really progressive, proper charity.
But, I was going to say, the funny thing is that this is not the first time that he's been in the news regarding his social media tweets for the past week, 2 weeks or whatever. He's been on a bit of a tirade.
It's wonderful.
Because he actually followed this up, and he's actually written, and I presume this is him following up that tweet, because he wrote, quote, "No sense of humour is certainly proving itself true. Good grief, how many socialists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Answer, that's not funny."
Well, I mean, he's from South Africa. Honestly, it probably is. It's probably just because he's from South Africa and he's been seeing his people back from here lives going through such hell.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I give up.
What would it do to you?
Well, he actually said in the response to that, by the way, I'm actually a socialist, just not the kind that shifts resources from the most productive to the least productive, pretending to be or do a good thing, while actually causing harm. True socialism keeps greatest social goods for all. So, what he's saying is there's a difference between being a communist and being a socialist, he's saying.
There's a difference between socialism, communism, and Marxism. Socialism, in the sense of today, is that you allow medical technology to be available, or rather than get it behind there, you allow the greatest technology. Like you say, like you allow the internet to be available, free and accessible to all, because it will just increase. And it's about having natural monopolies being managed by a government. Like there are certain things that should be socialized by government. And I know, oh my god, shock horror hearing me say that for somebody here, but these are called natural monopolies. In my opinion, he probably goes a bit further than that. I wouldn't actually mind some aspects that the socialists have been talking about recently, but that's for other different political things. I mean, for instance, all these incels, let's just give them their tiny little guaranteed income, give them a computer connection, give them a few video games and let them stop being such a fucking burden to the rest of us. They can just buy shit online and get trying to take the front door and keep Yang's store down the street open. And the rest of us can be productive members of society.
Well, I was
We
going to
can't
say,
fix everyone's ills.
there was also another tweet that I actually missed in the original looking up of this. He wrote, "Socialism versus capitalism," and this is probably what you're saying here, is not even the right question. What really matters is avoiding monopolies that restrict people's freedoms.
Essentially, yeah. Well, there's certainly certain things that there's two aspects there. There's certain things that you have to avoid getting monopolized because a company can monopolize it to a point, or what happens in the Americas and in the EU, etc., and Australia, or a lot of places, Australia, we can see it profoundly, is that you have companies that co-opt the system of government in order to allow them to have a monopoly or monopoly. So essentially, you end up spending a bunch of money with a lobby to create restrictive regulations around a company, whether it's standards for hygiene, cleanliness, whatever. And it means that X or Y company can hold a monopoly over something. This can also be true for certain products within the government. Say government holds a monopoly for all say power or internet, whatever. The internet's a good one. It means that, well, they now have such control that they can apply restrictive controls over it. It should be decentralized.
Like YouTube, for
But then there's other things. Yeah, like YouTube, or like if governments control the underwater cables and control the traffic you can and can't see, force things to log everything, for instance. That's a government monopoly that should be avoided. But at the same time, yeah, YouTube's another monopoly that essentially you should try to avoid, or rather the means of communication should try to avoid monopolizing them between any single entity.
Do you guys
if
think
the government's non-corrupt and open, then safeguard it.
Well, I was going to say, do you think it's interesting that Elon Musk is coming out and speaking out against monopolies and stuff like that, and also within the same week or 2 weeks is also attacking mainstream media and the current media? Do you think, because like he went through, he talked about do you think he's...
That's an interesting dog whistle you figured out there.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's I'd say so. It's part of what's pissing him off.
Yeah, I think he's...
Well, the media was attacking Elon Musk, and that's probably what pissed him off.
Well,
I think that's what pissed him off. If you think about it,
I think it's the media attacking the Afrikaners personally. He's from South Africa, mate. And then it's
that's true too.
Well,
that's probably the first trigger.
Yeah,
and then now attacking him
triggers.
afterwards.
I think there's a lot of triggers. I think it's also the media attacking Tesla and stuff like that. Like there was also a story that came out. I think it was actually in my things here, where he apparently the media is now trying to make the case that Elon Musk could be causing Tesla harm because of his tweeting and his views. So it sounds like they're trying to.
Oh, they're going to go down the. Yeah, they're going to go down the Trump road on that one.
Yeah.
Take away social media.
Yeah. So, well, I don't think it's. I think it's actually a lot bigger than that. I think they're trying to get him kicked off as CEO from his companies. To me, that would be something.
Yeah, they will never succeed.
Well,
Dude,
I don't think they could succeed on that.
Wait, keep your eye on that for me. If you think it's going to happen, I'll look into it. And if it's going to happen, I'm going to short the company's stock. And I reckon a hell of a lot of other people are too.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, that's the thing.
Wait, you have stock in it?
No, I don't have to hold stock in it to short the company's stock. I wish I held stock in it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, you don't have to short. You don't have to short stock.
Can you look into it? Yeah. Look into it for the next stream next week, because that should be something we should touch on.
Yeah, I reckon I'll keep an eye on it, because I reckon that's what they're going to do. They're going to try and get him removed from social media or get him removed from CEO of the companies. I don't know. Does he have a board? Can the board do that?
He's a publicly traded company, so yes, you technically can. But it would be a violation of their fiduciary obligations, because they need to, They need to make money. if they kick him out, then they're not going to make any cash. They're going to be failing.
Elon Musk is like all that stuff. Like that's SpaceX and everything too, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, listen. Elon Musk hires the right people. If they kick out Elon Musk, though, what it's going to do for stockholders is, okay, the golden goose is gone. It'd be just as bad as if you were stupid enough to say get rid of Steve Jobs at the height of Apple. Now, I'll say something that a lot of people are going to disagree with. Steve Jobs was a complete and utter hack. He was an angry businessman that was obsessive. Like what Wozniak, for instance, knew what he was doing.
He was friends with the guy of Microsoft.
Yeah, Gates. And the other guy behind Gates was the guy who made Linux eventually.
Bill Gates was a bit of a hack himself.
Oh yeah, he was. Bill Gates bought it. It's funny actually. Microsoft only became big because Dell computers was going to go around to the guy who made Linux and say, "Hey, can we put your operating system on our computers?" But he wasn't home at the time. Yeah.
Wow.
Imagine that. Losing out on being the world's richest man because you ain't home at the time.
No, it wasn't that he wasn't home. He actually said no.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't it? Oh, sorry, so close. One of those things, yeah.
What happened was IBM approached the guy that originally developed DOS. They wanted an operating system, and the guy that originally developed DOS turned around and said no because he wanted to keep it open source like Linux, and he refused to sign the deal. And then Microsoft came up, or Bill Gates came up and brought the product off him, and then turned around and licensed it to IBM to go through and run on their operating system. He basically screwed the guy.
You're talking about the guy who made the original Microsoft DOS, the Bill Gates ended up selling. I mean, I'm pretty sure the story goes they were actually contacted the Linux guy first, and then trying to contact afterwards.
Maybe.
Either way, I might
something like that.
Be wrong.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've read about it.
Yeah. I remember going when I was learning computers in high school and whatnot. I remember learning about this, and I found it really interesting. But God, that was a while ago now. So yeah, I'd have to relook into it.
And when it comes to Apple, the iPhone was actually pretty much a stolen product in many ways. And I mean, let's face it, so was Android. Android was pretty much a copycat. It's just that Google did it better.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't go saying better, but yeah.
Well.
We can get into that debate later. But
I mean, my very first smartphone was a HP Media thingy. It was, with a stylus and Windows Mobile. And then I had an iPhone 3G, and then I got an Android. I can tell you, the best one who did the same thing, but the best way, was Android. That's why I'm still on Android to this day. I mean, there was a lot of potential on Windows Mobile. Really, Microsoft should put a lot more money into that because there was a lot of potential there.
So the article
that could have been a competitor.
Sorry, the article that I saw was Tesla. Reality begins to collide with Elon Musk's vision. So it seems like they're actually going after Tesla.
Interesting.
I can't read the article because it's behind a paywall. Funny that, but yeah.
There's I can attack Elon Musk pretty heavily when it comes to things like the tube, the gravity tube thing.
Hyperlink. Oh my god.
Hyperloop.
Don't get me started.
The Hyperloop is ridiculous. But then the same guy, came up with these amazing batteries and all this amazing tech he does. And the electronic car and the electronic truck. Like, he's got incredible ideas. Some of them are just batshit crazy.
Yeah. And others...
I don't know how it works.
Well, it looks like it's actually not the first time they've gone after him for him as chairman of Tesla. Apparently, 11 days ago on June 6th, I'll put the article up on the screen now for people. But according to this article, Tesla, it's time again, story of the day is actually a waving together of series of items Foremost, at the Tesla annual shareholder meeting, Musk indicated the company is well on its way to the magic number of producing 5,000 Model 3s per week, currently running at about 3,500. I'll give you guys
They go after his Kim a lot, but that's because he makes ridiculous claims sometimes that they just comes too good to believe they'll go through, and they want a story of it. It's like the factory that everyone said, "Oh, there's no way you can do that in 100 days," and then it came in on a schedule.
So
that's my reading, at least.
Well, okay, yeah, but it does make you wonder. Like, this was done 11 days ago. It does make you wonder, are they a little bit jaded over his comments that he keeps making on social media?
Possibly. I think they're just desperate for content. It's media, but I mean, you could be right.
Most of the news in the world is centered around the stuff that the mainstream doesn't cover. So they need to make things up. That makes sense.
Yeah, most of the important shit in the world will never get covered by the mainstream.
News.
Or even if it's covered, it'll get buried.
Yeah. Well, yeah. When was the last time they covered Yemen, for example?
Yemen? What's Yemen?
Yeah, exactly. For anybody that's playing along at home and hasn't heard about this, Yemen is basically a country that is currently being bombed into oblivion by Saudi Arabia, that is being supplied military equipment by the UK, the US, and its allies.
Essentially, there's a proxy war between Iran and Syria. There's no Syria, Iran and...
well, wasn't it that Saudi Arabia declared war on Iran?
Yeah, no, it's a proxy war that's getting fought in Yemen between Iran and Saudi, and there's a lot of weapons that are getting sold to both sides from all over the place. And as that happens with all these people, they decide, okay, you can't do this. It's not like this. You should do our weapons and do it like this.
But the interesting thing is that this is going to cause a famine in Yemen. There are millions of people that are dying from cholera and diseases and stuff because of this bombing, and the Yemen people, as far as my understanding, didn't do shit to start this.
Another Holodomor, huh?
Sorry.
Well, the Sam people are just caught up between a rock and a hard place. They've always had animosities between Saudi Arabians, and they're getting used essentially as a weapon by the Iranians. They're in a shitty situation. Nothing they can do about it. Too bad.
Was it on this channel that we watched a video? It was that Australian chick talking about Australia selling weapons.
That was the other day.
Yeah. Funny that, yeah. And probably the last story, guys, and we'll probably wrap it up after this, is Father's Day. Leftists are outraged by Donald Trump Jr. loving on his children. So, as some of you may know, over in the US, it is Father's Day today. And apparently the left...
monstrous pedophile.
Yes, the left have been triggered by a father having two beautiful young children. And
they did the same thing to Melania Trump.
One second. Two beautiful young children?
You know what I mean, dude. Don't even go there, man. Don't even go there. But, the fact that he's got... Well, I was going to say white, but I changed it to something else, actually. That's why I got stuck.
Well, they did the same to Melania Trump when she was holding up her... oh, my God, a white woman loving her white son. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's funny how it seems to be that this 2.5 life, it's the family where it's the nuclear family that seems to be so controversial. It's all these families that have husbands and wives and children. It's this lovely image of the family. It's this, it's the nuclear family that.
I think we initially take you for sensitivity training on Nonpartisan.
Yeah, I probably need a lot of it after all this. But I was going to say, at the end of the day, like when was the last time they went through and they attacked? Well, obviously he's conservative, so they're going to attack him for that. But also at the end of the day, he's also got the nuclear family, which is obviously triggering for the left. and he's got a white family, which is obviously always going to be triggering for the left as well. So they decided
At the end of the day,
so they decided to attack him and try and use it to discredit Father's Day. But the interesting thing is, if I go to Google right now, do you think YouTube would have anything on its main page for Father's Day?
Absolutely not. And also, they did the same in Australia's Father's Day last year. They were trying to call it Special Persons Day, and I was saying I will do it if they also make it that Mother's Day is that too.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I don't have a problem.
That means I'll never have to do it.
No, of course not. But yeah, at the end of the day, we always know it's going to be different rules for some and different rules for any. But I was going to say, but yeah, look, at the end of the day, but you know, like I say, yeah, the fact is that, let's face it, if this was a multicultural family, they wouldn't give us two shits. They wouldn't have attacked him.
I got to say one thing quickly. Satellite, I hate you for pointing out that Nonpartisan, how much Nonpartisan says that to me, because every time he says it, I can't help but it just triggers my autism, you know.
You know,
it's all your fault.
Yeah, I'll start this by just saying allegedly, the previous presidential family was a black man with a black tranny.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
I think that you don't be so quick to judge people and their physical appearances.
Yeah, you might need some sensitivity.
And I may have
too,
just nuked Nonpartisan Media's channel by saying that.
Nah, it should be fine. But look, at the end of the day, what I was going to say was the fact is that I don't know if Obama actually went through and posed on Father's Day with his children. Did he? What was?
I have no idea.
No, I'd have to go through the archives and have a look. But
there's probably some thing that got done, honestly.
But I was going to say, but it'd be interesting to find out if Barack Obama was targeted by the left when he went through and did the same.
He wasn't.
No.
Spoiler, he wasn't.
Yeah, I very much doubt he was either. Now, obviously, it's always the left that are going through and
attacking. There's a different rule for white people.
There's not a single chance he was targeted. Yeah.
Yeah.
The true modern meaning of diversity is everyone is not white.
True. It's diversity if you're not white. Yeah. Interesting though.
Do you remember the tweet? Do you remember the tweet of a diversity photo shoot, and it was just basically all black women?
I don't think it was all black. I think there was multicultural in there.
There was a Mexican. There was a Mexican in there.
Yeah, it was multicultural, all except for there was no white involved. And that's what people pointed out on Twitter. People turned around and said on Twitter, how is this diversity if you do not have a white person representing the white race? That was pointed out to him.
White race, I'm sorry, but stop being so racist.
Yeah, we got to be more sensitive. But anyway, I'm just going through here, through his actual feed. So it would have been June, right? He did not post anything for Father's Day in June last year.
Huh.
Oh, no, he did actually.
Probably didn't get on.
No, he did.
Oh, I was going to say.
On the 18th, which is their 17th, he posted this. And
I'm going to do an edit to that photo, whatever it is, because I've got a brilliant idea. Things that I can guess.
God. But I was going to say, but at the end of the day, it's funny because, yeah, he wasn't called out. He had people posting in the comments about him being an American and stuff like that. But no one was really attacking his children or anything, were they? Oh no, someone did.
I have no idea.
Someone did. Someone posted you're an amazing role model to all the children around the world, and then a photo of his daughter smoking.
Their children?
Yeah, smoking and
twerking.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, yeah, the left and the right both do it. I will fully admit. It does seem to be a shot that the opposition does seem to do. And look, at the end of the day, if Obama
it's the case with partisan politics, dude.
Yeah.
They'll attack you for anything under the sun. They'll get you for anything they can. It's how the game is played.
But the thing is, the problem is that okay, so if you don't do that, if you take the high road, so to speak, then you lose the war.
Yeah.
So what do? If you don't attack him, you lose the war, so to speak. If you do attack him, then you're no better than us. So, where do you fall on that sort of thing?
Well, that's the problem. You lose the war because you don't manage to get any media attention, and because media has become such an overbloated mess that is just trying to serve entertainment. That you need to be able to somehow counter the measure with quality, entertaining content as well, and that's why the ability to freely communicate with the masses like this is important. With unbiased algorithms for what you search for Google, it is extremely important for people to actually able to get a multitude of perspectives and thoughts into the public sphere.
Are you saying that it's a good idea if someone went through at a future date and developed a platform that was like YouTube that did not monitor or prejudice against certain political parties?
I think that there should be a shitload of competitors, just like media is supposed to have and used to have.
True.
Just like newspapers, etc.
Which is basically what alternative media is.
And there should also be reliable government sources that will release things. Maybe the Freedom of Information Act should actually be acknowledged once or twice.
Freedom of speech, for example.
Could be a useful thing to have in a country.
I think there's hope. Maybe we could fix the BBC.
I think they're too far left, don't they?
That's the funniest thing I've heard all day.
And the Australian ABC.
Yeah, I think I have a better chance of going through and making my own media company, to be honest. But anyway.
Yeah, look, see, you need proper unbiased broadcasting from government. I think what we're seeing from both, if we're using government-sponsored media, is just as bad as every other avenue and gets just as co-opted. It needs to really just be raw feeds without editorials.
That in itself would be a very, very interesting experiment. If you were to go through and actually have a TV station that would actually play live streams from YouTubers.
Well, not even necessarily YouTubers. I'm talking about like presidential speeches, etc. Just live feeds of this without so much editorialism. That's the thing that there's a few stations that do similar stuff. Like I think in Australia at least, SBS is pretty decent with their news generally.
Really?
When they're saying it's...
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
Back in the day. Do you want to phone a friend 50-50 lifeline?
I haven't watched news for about 10, 15 years.
No.
On mainstream TV. No, but back in the day, they used to, at least when something important was happening, would just end up talking about the event from something major. We just go through it, not try to give too much of a spin, and just say what the events are happy to people. Nowadays, I'm guessing that from the reaction there, they probably got a lot worse because I haven't watched it in quite a while.
Not as far left as like ABC, obviously. The ABC is far, far left. But
see,
they
SBS
definitely
didn't even used to be left.
Yeah, I would say they're definitely leftists. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, that's depressing to hear. I mean, it'd be nice to have news comments, but yeah, the reality is that you can't really dodge. But I just want it'd be interesting to see governments and media just doing raw, boring stuff that then would get used by other things. You don't need a lot of viewers for government-sponsored media. You just need to be able to get unbiased content out there and let people do with it what they will.
Anyway, we might wrap it up there, guys. It's getting fairly late in the morning and we've been going for almost 2 hours, so probably should wrap it up about now.
And I'm starting to lose control of the child at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Probably.
the little ambassador over there is probably going to get a little bit restless sooner or later. But guys, look, obviously, if you have any comments in the comment section, feel free to hit us up after this video has processed. It shouldn't take long. I try and keep them under 2 hours so they get processed pretty quick. Let us know what your thoughts are. We'll have a look into the Elon Musk thing and we'll keep an eye on it over the next week or so and see if they start attacking him for anything that he's done. I imagine the socialism tweet is going to cause a little bit of a backlash from his peers in the media.
Oh, a little.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I don't know. Apart from that, guys, obviously, thanks for joining us yet again for the live show. Everybody who did tune in, thanks for letting us join in and jumping in and turning my comments section cancerous once again. But apart from that, guys, obviously, have a great night. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. Have a great night.